Good afternoon. Very pleased to meet you here.
Great. Happy to be in Israel and really glad to be here with you, Yorai. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I think, the US and the Israeli are sharing same thoughts of national security, same troubles, maybe different sizes, different locations. From your perspective, what is the impact of AI on all of that? How do you envision AI taking part in our future with national security?
So I think the first thing is that, of course, the idea of autonomous vehicles is very well understood. The idea of autonomous drones, autonomous ground vehicles for defense purposes is very well understood. But I think we're going to see a lot more enablement of the targeting cycle with AI. And that's everything from target identification to the interpretation of the information that comes off of a target. And I think a perfect example of that is a couple years ago, obviously the Israeli government brought home a treasure trove of information related to the Iranian nuclear program, millions of documents. The idea that you can apply an AI algorithm to that to lighten the load, probably there were hundreds of thousands of hours of analytical time that was spent going through those documents. The idea that you can now have an AI algorithm that would go through that, it's not just about finding trends or pieces of information that maybe you didn't connect two dots, but it's also very quickly, if that is related to a follow-on target, a follow-on action that needs to be taken. The idea that you can rapidly feed that follow-on action is really something that I think you're going to see be extremely helpful in the national security space. But of course, all of that comes with threats. Dr. Ben Israel mentioned this. Of course, the adversaries will also be using AI. And so I think that it's a two-sided coin.
Thank you. So you mentioned this circle, this target circle, and of course, one side of it is the scale, the ability to digest so much data, and I think the way we see the future national security issues, they are going to be overloaded with data. So one of them is the data, and then there is the action side, which is relevant to the speed of action and the way decision should be taken. What do you think is the influence of AI, the ability of AI to contribute for those decision makers, but also for the missiles decision, whether to explode or not?
Right. So I think on the high end for the policymaker, the idea that you could take any adversary, feed the actions of their leaders over a long period of time, over a 20-year period, into an algorithm that will help the decision maker understand what the possible red lines might be for that country. How would that adversary react to certain actions that you might take? And so I think that that's very promising. I think at the more tactical level, there's a lot of talk about, killer drones, basically just going all over and autonomously killing people. The reality is that I actually see that automation and AI will really reduce and has a great potential to reduce civilian harm. That is, the drone and with an algorithm or an AI using computer vision may actually be better at identifying civilians in the area than a human would be. And so I think that there actually are great benefits to AI in that sense. It's not just this idea that a machine is going to be going around shooting willy-nilly.
Really hope so. So from your perspective, governments, our type of governments are acting responsible for AI actions. Is the way that AI is going to integrate and impact national security is going to be responsible? What should be done to be more on the safe side from that perspective?
Right. So, we don't, I'll just start here. I mean, we do not leave any weapon unsecured. We don't. But we're here talking today about all the great research that's being done at private companies around the world and at universities with all of these algorithms that might have defense applications. And we do know that there are certain countries that are looking to steal this sort of technology. And just like we would secure any other weapon system, any other defense research, we need to really think very hard about how we're securing these algorithms, especially as they become more powerful and more suited to the battlefield. So I think that that's really just one thing off the bat. I think another thing is, we really have to think about the underlying things that enable AI. The US government has recently decided to restrict certain microchips from going to a despotic regime. I think that Israel should be very concerned about what algorithms Iran may be trying to either develop or acquire overseas.
So you think we can look at algorithms as a weapon, and we should act it as a problem of proliferation, and like maybe we do with cyber and other data weapons, we should act also to algorithms, AI algorithms, and technologies of such matter.
I think there's a balancing act, right? I mean, right now, society is benefiting greatly, and there's a lot of benefit to come from AI. So, of course, we don't want to, restrict it. But AI is a dual-use technology, and we have to be careful as it becomes more powerful that it doesn't fall into the enemy's hands. I mean, that's for sure. Now, I'm not saying that we should be treating AI today like a nuclear weapon or anything like that. But there should be certain procedures that are put in place. I think a lot of these companies are really very juicy targets for the adversary. And frankly, researchers just aren't thinking about the people that are trying to steal their work, maybe the way that they should be. But along the lines of norms, which you also asked me about, I think that at least in the US side of things, there's still a very heavy weight towards some human in the loop. And the US Department of Defense put out a new AI guidelines for use in military purposes earlier this year. And it's very clear that there's still an expectation and a weight towards a human being having the hands on the controls to some extent. I think as these algorithms become more autonomous, the risk that you face if you take the human out of the loop is, of course, I think one of the main risks as a policymaker that I was concerned about was this idea of this problem of AI hallucination. Well, if the hallucination takes place from a drone that has a missile on it and it misreads a signal or misunderstands something or hallucinates, you could have an escalation that would have quite significant consequences.
Well, I couldn't agree less. I think that from that perspective, you could also look, when talking about responsibility, that those, not fully automated or autonomous platforms, but deeply deployed with AI are also vulnerable. And there should be some efforts to protect them from malwares from one side, and then from adversarial situations that might bring them to a kind of a inner conflict or mathematical conflict that will lead to hallucination or other states. I think that saying that human in the loop is part of the solution is kind of challenging. Well, in many cases, it's okay to put it that way, but when you're looking on the edge and you want the machine to take a decision at the edge, at the specific edge when you can think of national security situation, but also in real life, you cannot always bring the human in the loop to that edge. So what do you think will be the tactical point of action here?
I think like AI's use in the commercial sector, there's a degree of comfort that needs to come. And I think that part of this will come through AI moving out of a research laboratory and moving closer to the field. As militaries field test these items, they'll be more, these algorithms, they will become more comfortable with the ability of the algorithms to follow rules of engagement, for instance, in an accurate way. So one of the things I did when I was at the Pentagon was move Maven, make the decision to move Project Maven, which is the US Department of Defense's really premier AI project, to move it out of the Pentagon bureaucracy and to the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, because I felt it was very important for the operators to become familiar with the algorithms. So I think that that's one thing. But look, as the algorithms become more competent and advanced and also correct in the actions they take, you could really envision a great use for them in what I would call communications denied environments. So for instance, take Iran, where maybe the Iranian government would be jamming communications to a drone, for instance, or there are other scenarios where you could see certain adversaries taking out satellites to create a communications denied environment. Having the drone or the autonomous vehicle be able to operate absent any link back to headquarters could be extremely valuable. But even in the, I think having that kind of tactical operation, even in the intelligence environment, you and I spoke before we came up here about, this idea that a computer implant for intelligence collection purposes could have AI operating in it so that the AI is only selecting the key pieces of information that the owner of that implant wants, so that less data is being exfilled, which would obviously raise detection and concern. So I think those are some scenarios where I can see us heading towards a truly autonomous defense purpose.
Thank you. You mentioned before moving from the academic to the field, close to the data, close to the real life situation. I think it's strong. It strengthens the solution in both ways. First, it strengthens the technology, but also it prepares the people, the humans, how to deal and how to act with the AI technology when they have to do their mission. How do you see in the future, or what is the best way to orchestrate the contribution of the academic and the contribution of, let's say, the defense sector, whether it's private or, government?
You lost your mic.
Lost my mic. Okay. Got it back. So, repeating the question, so how do you see, what is the way to orchestrate the contribution of the academic research with the defense sector in a way that they can both, contribute, the academics should contribute not only for defense, but also private sector and everything else, but in the way that they can contribute each other and create a synergy that will provide us with better AI. So what is the way to do that? In Israel, we have a strong defense sector, we have a strong academic, and we're looking for ways or methods to connect them together in a plan.
So the question was, if you couldn't hear, was how do you balance the needs of the defense sector to protect technology with the desire of the commercial sector to have a more open development environment? Look, I mean, this is a big problem in the United States. It's not just for AI, it's across the spectrum of things that could have defense uses. I think Israel, through its as a smaller country, it's a little bit easier to control. And of course, many of the people that are doing the research have come out of the military. And so there's a different sense than in the United States. Look, I mean, it's a balance, but I think there does have to be a point where, as the algorithms advance, as the research advances, just like in the nuclear days from 60 years ago, there's a point where the technology crosses a threshold where there has to be more control. Where that is a decision of policy, but there is some threshold.
Thank you. And if you can refer a little bit, I know, if we'll say something that we shouldn't, we just kill them all and then we clear, right? So a few weeks ago, I think, the Israeli government, the defense minister, discussed how AI is going to be part of the Israeli plan towards Iran. So we have Iran as a threat, we're all familiar with that. And then suddenly someone pulled out of his pocket the AI label and put them together, launching something like an AI major plan for national security. What do you think of that?
So I think it's a good idea. There's a lot of application for AI. We've already discussed some of them. I think one of the areas that also beyond the kinetic AI supporting kinetic operations is also in the cognitive domain, and so that is not just the idea that you could have hundreds of thousands of Twitter bots turning out very authentic looking content that was backed by ChatGPT or something like that, that was affecting and shaping the perceptions of the adversary. But the other option too is where I think AI can be helpful is in manipulating the adversary's perception of the battlefield. So of course, Iran has many sensors. They have radars. They have all sorts of things. And AI has a great potential to be able to actually produce information that would shape and also potentially make the Iranians doubt or decide not to take some sort of action.
So just to summarize it all, you think for Israel government to invest in AI, would it be a good idea to invest in that plan? Will it contribute to other markets, other research sectors? Is it like a good starting point to invest in AI from your point of view?
Well, I think the adversary is investing in AI. So even if it's just a matter of matching, but really in Israel, the issue is always of maintaining an edge. And I think it is essential. Certainly the U.S. Very much depends on Israel in the Middle East. Israel has to maintain an edge in AI, an edge over its adversaries in the region. And even if it's not just for the defensive mechanisms that have been discussed here, so that you can defend against algorithms from your adversaries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you, Ezra.